Yeah, by comparison to my other video today, this is a pretty sharp contrast. Belphegor, Conjuring the Dead, after talking about Taylor Swift. Well, there's a lot to say, really. I mean, these guys have been treading the blackened death metal fine line for a number of years. If I remember correctly, I think we talked about their last album, which came a couple of years ago, and I'm actually a bit tardy to the party on this one, and I'm kind of alright with that. Only because it gave me a little bit of time to digest an album that's actually kind of curious. Now, it's not curious in the way as, say, the Opeth album was from earlier this week that we covered. It's instead curious in a way that, well, here. The 10 tracks on this album, you would think that perhaps would be sort of like a sandwich. There's a instrumental, a 1-minute long instrumental entitled The Eyes in the middle of it, track number 6, that divides the first 5 tracks from 7 through 10. That would almost act like a piece of cheese or a piece of meat. It serves as the natural middle point. But I feel that what we get with the first half of this album and what we get with the second half of this album is a bit different in contrast. The first 5 tracks on this album feel very much like individual entities, almost as though each track has its own individual frame of mind and frame of reference. A track like the opening single, Gas Mask Terror, definitely kicks off the album with a strong and aggressive point of view, and it's one that really showcases why these guys have a fury that's all of their own. Whenever you get in The Conjuring, The Dead, and other tracks in these opening 5, you definitely feel a certain sense of individuality. So, whenever the blackened death metal style is, lingering a little bit more toward the black metal style, whenever things are allowed to kind of, let the pace dictate itself as opposed to, going as quickly as possible, this is something that definitely aids the composition, something that makes it certainly flow a little bit nicer, and that slowed down pace actually really pays Belphegor in leads, considering it really feels like there's a lot more comfort, a lot more depth, and a lot more dynamism to this. It really feels darker, it feels denser, it feels like it has a lot more of an atmosphere behind it that really propitiates that negative, a very misanthropic ideal that they're trying to present. Whenever things are just teetering a little bit more toward your traditional death metal department with little tiny twinges of the black metal or the blackened side, it really feels kind of typical. But then we get past track number 6, we get past The Eyes, we get through 7 through 10. We get to Legions of Destruction, Flesh, Bones, and Blood, Lucifer, Taker, and Pactum in Aeternum. These feel almost like 4 tracks that were meant to be one. Similar to what you would expect from like a 2112 from Rush, either that or any sort of concept album. It feels like these 4 blend together nicely because they are meant to be its own cycle of songs. And that's what actually is very kind of disorienting the first time that you listen through this portion of the album, this second half of the Belphegor Conjuring the Dead sandwich. But it's also one that actually serves it rather nicely, rather beautifully, and really makes this portion of the album very memorable. The first time that you listen to this, these 4 tracks, you're going to feel kind of taken aback, especially if you're not looking down at your playback device. You're going to feel as though, man, you're listening to, a pretty long track. It's one that definitely seems like they've done a lot in order to really raise the bar a little bit. They're able to take it to the next level and kind of do things in multiple parts. So the breaks on this are not necessarily cut and dry. This is instead something that seems like it flows together very nicely. Secondly, we have varying track lengths that definitely help suggest this. These 4 tracks span roughly about, give or take, about 13 minutes in length. So, all depending on what kind of heavy metal that you enjoy, it's no surprise or not really out of the ordinary to really feel like a long track could be, accomplished by a band such as this, considering they definitely have the ability to command the attention for, 4 to 5 minutes at a time. Why not be able to expand the horizons and make a multi-part song? So, already the suggestion right there certainly works. And finally, it's the curious way in which Lucifer Takes Her blends into the last track, Pactum in Aeternum. This is one where it almost feels like Lucifer Take Her is extended into the final track. And it's almost as though it's a continuance. And this continuance also kind of feels like it is present between Flesh, Bones, and Blood and Lucifer Taker. The whole thing just feels like it's interconnected and interwoven. Almost like The Eyes is the introduction. It's kind of the overture to what we are going to hear on side number B, which really feels like one collective massive thought. This is actually an idea that serves the band pretty well, and it actually makes the songwriting feel pretty unique. It makes it, we're not necessarily sensing all of that new of tricks from this band. We're not necessarily getting too much of a different routine from the group. So Belphegor is definitely in a comfort zone in their writing philosophy, and it's one where the ideas now have to be really strong ones in order for it to stand out by comparison to other albums. I feel as though this certainly is doing so in a unique way, and while lyrically it may not necessarily be the most awe-inspiring and, philosophical work that the band has ever really put out, this is something that's meant to have a certain misanthropic mayhem to it, and it certainly provides that. And it's definitely not one that's light on the satanic references. This is certainly one that, makes a very bold proclamation about it at every wit's end, every twist and turn and possible moment that it can. Overall, this album has a lot of charm to it. I feel that it will confuse some, but at the same time, and at the end of the day, will satisfy. It's one that will definitely succeed in thrashing someone's face off, while at the same time also causing them to maybe pause and consider some of the curiosities that this album is able to really boast. Definitely a huge stark contrast from what we talked about in the last video, right, guys? This is a lot better. I know this is what most of you guys want, but, I have to talk about that other stuff every so often, just to fucking rile people up. It's kind of my hobby. Overall, I'd give this album a solid 78 out of 100. I really like where they're going with this, and it's an album that was able to keep my attention and really keep my focus, and it's one that I recommend. It's something where I feel like the best from this band is still yet to come. Like, they're going to harness all of that positive songwriting style that they've really been able to, slowly gain throughout the years and kind of tweak here and there. And they're going to get that nice, classic album that's going to come, and it's going to just blow the universe away. It was a universe of Belphegor fans, but, small universe, but potent universe. Universe that's capable of really fucking some shit up whenever this happens. So, hey, give this one a shot. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments. I'll talk to you guys later.